Holy fucking shit. Where have I been? You may be asking. And I don't really have an answer for that. I have been going through so many life changes back to back, no breaks in between. It's been a fucking mess the past, 6 months? I don't even remember the last time I updated a video or uploaded content. No idea. I spent probably half of last year not doing any content just because shit got fucked up. Hi, my name's Michelle. This is my tribe, which basically consists of me, the village idiot, and all of you who like to watch the village idiot be an idiot. I don't have any words for that. I really don't. I don't have anything to really explain what happened last year. I had all these grand plans of restarting this year, showing off my glow up. Obviously, that's not happening. I'm coming out of a sinus infection right now, so I'm sorry if I sound super nasally. My nails are trashed, my hair is pink when it should be red, and my bangs are so outgrown that they're stabbing my corneas. But I am ever hopeful that all of you lovely members of my tribe will forgive the appearance and forgive the weird, slightly more annoying than usual voice, and will hang out with me for the next however long that it takes for me to do a 2021 year-end review. So I know it's late, we're already in 2022. Most booktubers have already posted their 2021 year-end reviews a couple of weeks ago, definitely before the first. Well, I am late to the party as usual, but I really wanted to get this content up because even though I've been neglecting my duties as a YouTube creator, I have actually been reading. Reading is one of the ways that I have coped with the crazy fucking shit show that my life has been the past few months. I'm sorry for all the profanity. That's just how I am. That's just how I talk. If you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you because it's not going to stop. So anyway, instead of boring all of you with the dramatic, traumatic mess that my life has been dealing with, and like giving these long explanations of where have I been and my epic return to YouTube, I'd rather just dive into this content today. I would rather just dive into the 2021 year-end review. Now, I've noticed a lot of booktubers using the same format and answering these same questions, so that's what I'm going to attempt to do today. Unfortunately, because of having to move, because of having to put most of my belongings into storage, a lot of these books are currently in storage, even though I do own the hard copies of them. So I'll try to post photos of the book covers so you know what I'm talking about. Although most of these books you guys have heard of 1,000 times already. So let's start off with question number 1. How many books did I read this year? Half of this year I was in school, half this year I was just very much not doing well mentally, emotionally, all that loveliness. So I honestly read hardly anything, but I am proud to say that I read a whopping 30 books the same year that I turned 30. So woohoo! Go 30, I guess. Second question, what was my most read genre? Well, obviously that was horror, but towards the end there, we were diving steadily, like headlong into smut fantasy land, which I'm a fan of now, and a little bit of self-help, a little bit of like YA going on, but obviously mostly horror because your girl is a horror lover, and that sounded slightly odd. What was the longest book I read? That definitely had to be It by Stephen King, coming in at a whopping 1,116 pages, I think. That's what I have written down. So if I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments. It was a paperback edition, one of the newest editions that came out right after the new It Chapter 2 came out. So it was like a republishing of it. So not all copies might be the same page length, but holy shit, that book was long. I've never read a book that long and hope to never have to read a book that long ever again. What was the shortest book I read in 2021? At a whopping 128 pages, that would have to be Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. We'll be talking about this book momentarily. What was my favorite book that was published in 2021? I have to say without a shadow of a doubt that it was this beauty right here. I have actually been following Laura Olympus on Webtoon forever. Rachel Smith, I hope that's how you say your last name. Pretty sure it's Smith. Might be Smythe or Smithy, I don't know. Your storytelling is mwah. It is gorgeous. I mean, come on. Like, come on. I mean, definitely not a difficult read by any means, but this story is so beautiful. Out of all of the fantasy retellings, the smut, the romance, the whatever fantasy of the story of Hades and Persephone, this is by far the best, in my opinion, for what it's worth. I already have volume 2 pre-ordered for July of this year, I think is when it comes out. So if you want to pre-order it, hop on over to Amazon or wherever else it might be available for pre-order. It is beautiful. It is a lovely story. So there's that. My favorite debut author of 2021 would probably be Rachel Smith, since I believe that was her first book ever published. I'm not entirely sure. Now, if we're talking about debut author to me, as in an author that is brand new to me that I've never read before, but I read for the first time in 2021, it would have to be the glorious Adam Neville. Mwah. I love you. I'm a god. I literally only read one of his books this past year, and that was enough. It was enough. And I just recently purchased Cunning Folk, his newest release, so I'll be doing a review on that later. But yeah. Speaking of Adam Neville, that leads us to our next question, which is, what is your favorite book, right? Your favorite book that was not published in 2021 that you just happened to so read in 2021. That would obviously be The Ritual. It was glorious. I first had no idea that The Ritual was a book. I saw the movie adaptation on Netflix this past year as well. Fell in love. It is phenomenal. There are some major differences though. There are some key differences. Like the storytelling itself falls, like the first half of the book is basically the movie with some very strong key differences, you know if you know. And then the second half of the book just takes this fucking, free fall into hell. I don't know how else to describe it. A lot of people love the first half of that book and hate the second. I love the whole thing. I love the whole thing. Like, it's visceral. I felt everything that our lead character was feeling. I literally physically could almost feel the sensations of pain and agony and all this gloriousness that you want in a horror novel through his descriptive writing. And I fucking loved it. So I'm hoping that all of his books are this way. I have not read any of his other books, so I will be reading Cunning Folk this year, and I'm going to try to read some of his other works as well. What was a book that lived up to the hype in 2021? Now, I don't believe this book was actually written in or published in 2021. I don't think, but it was still highly hyped in 2021. In fact, I found it over on Bookstagram, and just, the fact that Exorcism was in the title, I had to read it. My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This book was phenomenal. There are some scenes in that book that just chilled me to my fucking bones. The tapeworm scene. If you know, you know. There is a piece of me that never wants to read that book again just because of that one scene. This leads us to the next question. What was a book that I read in 2021 that did not live up to the hype? If you know, you know. And you know. I mean, okay, like there's a lot of people out here that absolutely are dragging this shit through the mud. I don't think it deserves that, because it's not that bad. It just definitely did not live up to the hype that was presented when it was about to be released or published. So I was very disappointed with this book. Very, very, very disappointed in this book. And honestly, the writing itself is not bad. I hated all the characters, which I think was kind of meant to be. Like, the characters were written in a way that were very unlikable, so I feel like that was on purpose. Hated every single one of the characters. But more so, I was disappointed because I thought what we were going to get was one of the first, maybe not one of the first, but one of the few Japanese horror folklore crossovers. You know, like I was wanting to deep dive into Japanese folklore and legend and mythos. I wanted that. And you just get these vague little like shout outs to the yokai and to this creature and that creature, but they don't do anything. Like some of the descriptions are beautiful and everything, but there's no plot that directly involves them. They're just kind of there on the sidelines while all of the idiot characters basically yell at each other a lot. Like, it was not what I wanted. It was not what I wanted. Now, a book that I read in 2021 that felt like the biggest accomplishment was, again, It. I have been meaning to read It since I was a freaking child, because the old school one with Tim Curry was one of the first horror movies I ever saw, and I loved it. I mean, obviously it scared me shitless when I was a child, but I loved it. When they remade him, I loved it. Mwah, beautiful. And once the first remake, the It Chapter 1 came out, I was like, I've got to read this fucking book. I got halfway through the book, made the mistake of taking a break, and didn't pick it up again for months. So then I finally picked it up, restarted it, and finished it this past year. And I'm so glad I did. I am so glad I did. It was beautiful storytelling. Like, absolutely, like some of the best storytelling I have ever read in my life, and probably will ever read in my life. One of the questions on the 2021 year in review is like, did you have a favorite character from any book that you read that year? Ben Hanscom from It. I have loved that character since I saw the first movie. I love that character even more now because reading the book, his character is built so much. There is so much depth to that character. There's so much love and kindness and concern, and like there's flaws like that, like the way Stephen King wrote his character as well as the other kids as they grow up. Like there's so many genuine human flaws in them, but they're so beautifully balanced by each other. It's just I love that character so much. If he were real, would marry him in a heartbeat. Yes. Now, another question is, did I have any least favorite characters from any of the books that I read in 2021? And you may or may not remember, I think I did a video about The Others by Sarah Blau. Anyway. Didn't love that book. It wasn't horrible, but definitely didn't love it. But I hated the main character. I hated her so fucking much. She was so annoying. She was always complaining, always bitching about something, always like super petty, super jealous, super envious. Like that typical petty ass bitch of a woman. I could not stand her. I really wanted her to die. Like I was hopeful that she would die a horrible death by the end of the book, but whatever. Most shocking scene out of a book that I read last year. I've already mentioned it in this video. It has to be the tapeworm scene from My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Like, if you've seen any of my previous videos, I may have mentioned here and there that my worst fear in life is parasites. Like, you could shoot me in my face and I would be okay with that, but having to live with something living inside of me, I will not do it. I will not do it. So yeah, that scene, if you know, you know. Holy fucking God. The next question is, did I have a favorite couple from any of the books that I read this past year? And I didn't read a lot of romance up until the end, so I don't really have a favorite couple per se, but one of the horror novels I read was The Haunting of Blackwood. Yeah, The Haunting of Blackwood House by Darcy Coates, and I really liked the couple in that book, Mara, who's our lead character, and Neil, who I believe ends up being her fiance, if I'm not mistaken. But even though they go through a lot of turmoil, a lot of bickering, arguing, Mara is very bullheaded, and Neil is sometimes too, I wouldn't say submissive, but too, like, submissive. They play very well together. Like, towards the end, they just have this horrible traumatic experience and they kind of grow as a couple. And he is, like, there with her through it. And finally, a male character who doesn't, like, diss the female for believing in spirits. In fact, it was like the other way around, practically, where he was more willing to believe and she wasn't. So that was refreshing. Now, in my opinion, the next question is really difficult for me to answer. The next question is, what is the best, or, like, most well-written book that I read in 2021? And I'm going to say this next book and y'all are going to go off the rails because it's like, what do you mean? You read it. Hello. As far as well-written, one of the best books I read last year was The Night Will Find Us by Matthew Lyons. I read that book because it was part of the book club that Jade the Libra over here on YouTube does here and there. And that was the book that was picked. And I was excited to read it. And honestly, I did love it. Like, I loved it. I loved the descriptions, the atmosphere, the character building. I loved all of it. Like, a lot of people hated that book and despised it. I actually really loved the way it was written. Something about it just really jived with me. Like, it really did. I won't say it was the best, but I just wanted to give it a shout out in that category because it still sticks with me to this day. The next question is, did I have a book that I pushed other people to read last year? And honestly, once I read the first book, I think it was the Haunting of Ashburn, The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates, I was telling people left and right to go read Darcy Coates. A lot of my friends and family are not super into horror. They're not into, like, super heavy horror like I am. So I would talk about Darcy Coates all day long because she's so, like, creepy, but she doesn't push the limits to the point of disturbing. You know what I mean? Like, to that point where you feel almost nauseous having read it. So she's a very creepy cozy, I think, is what Merce from Harpies in the Trees used to say. So I agree with that 100%. If you have anyone in your life that wants to try and kind of delve into horror a little more, but they're not used to it, I would always start them with Darcy Coates because she is phenomenal. Now, ironically, the next question is, what is my favorite book cover of the year? And honestly, I gotta say it, man. Like, this is half the reason I bought this book was because of this beautiful fucking cover. I honestly think this cover is what drove the hype for this book to be well far and above what it should have been. This cover is beautiful. This cover is everything I want in a horror novel, especially a Japanese horror novel. Like, look at this beauty. Anyway, I'll stop raving now. The next question is asking, did I have a favorite adaptation this past year? And I'm assuming, obviously, that means either a book to movie or a book to TV series. I really enjoyed... Honestly, no, I didn't really... Interestingly enough, Beastars Season 2 came out this past year. And Beastars, I am so in love with. like beyond in love with. Like, I am going to get a Legoshi and Haru tattoo. Like, it's going to happen. I don't know when, I don't know how or where on my body it's going, but it's happening. It is happening. Like, that's how much in love with it I am. And Beastars Season 2 was phenomenal. You really get to deep dive into Legoshi's world. Sorry. I'm losing my voice because I'm coming out of a sinus infection, so bear with me, please. And he's just like one of the most amazing characters I've ever seen or experienced. And I love the show so much because they stick to the manga or however you want to pronounce it. I'm from East Texas, so I say manga a lot. Leave me alone. It's hard for me to not go, hey! Fuck off. The next question is, was there a book this past year that made me cry the most? Honestly, I teared up a lot once I finished it. There's a lot of nostalgia. There's a lot of like melancholy feeling like once you finally finish that book. So I did tear up for sure. And it was a good ending. Like for Stephen King, it was a fantastic ending. Like, you know, they didn't all die miserably. But yeah, that one made me tear up for sure. But honestly, Lore Olympus also had me in my feels. For those of you who have no idea what this is, this story is a retelling of the Hades and Persephone legend, myth, I don't know. But it's done in such a beautiful way. And I mean, there is some slight trigger warning to this book because they do touch on topics of rape, sexual assault, you know, just, it's a lot. And honestly, the process of dealing with victimization is so beautifully displayed through Persephone in this story that if you yourself have ever been sexually assaulted or raped, then, I mean, there is a slight trigger warning here, but honestly, in my opinion, it was a healing process. It was a healing journey to kind of see her go through this, to empathize with her feelings and her expressions, and just like, damn, been there, you know? Like, it's amazing. It's a beautiful piece of artwork is what this book is, in my opinion. But it definitely had me in my feelers. The next question is, was there a book this past year that made me laugh the most? And honestly, I don't read a lot of comedies or anything that's like super funny, but A Ruin of Roses by K.F. Breen. Now, most of you are probably like, that's some smut fantasy. How was that funny? Honestly, this, and I want to say even more so, the sequel, which I just finished not too long ago, A Throne of Ruin, these books have some major humor in them. Like, they are very self-aware of the sometimes silliness of the smut, if that even makes sense. And they have some characters in them that are absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. If you know, Hadriel is definitely one of them that just like keeps me laughing throughout these books. And just the way the characters play off of each other, there is some epic sarcasm in there. It's awesome. Those two are probably the ones that made me laugh the most. Now, one of the last few questions is, do I now have a new favorite author? Well, to be fair, the past 5 years of my life, I haven't really been reading much of anything. So this past year, I found a lot of new favorites. Darcy Coates, Anya Allburn, Adam Neville, of course. Like, those are probably my top 3 that I was most impressed by this past year. Grady Hendrix, of course, too, though. But I have a lot of his books that I haven't even gotten to, because the only one of his books that I read last year was My Best Friend's Exorcism. So I do have a couple of his other books. I also meant to get to Stephen Graham Jones, didn't, so this next year I'm definitely going to get to him. So by the end of this year, it might be a totally different review, guys. Might be completely different. Alright, the second to the last question. Did I have a favorite reread for this year? And of course, that would have to be The Exorcist. It will always probably be my favorite horror novel. It's usually that one or Cujo. Like, those two kind of battle each other. It just depends on the mood, because they are both horror, but they're both very different. The The Exorcist will always be in my top 5 forever. Just always. And the last question is, what was the best nonfiction that I read this past year? I had to read a lot of textbooks for school. Oh my god, it was so, it made me really not want to read any nonfiction, to be honest. But one of the books that I read for school was actually Mindhunter by John Douglas, and I loved it. It was fascinating. I've always been super intrigued by like forensic psychology and the FBI, and like the art of criminal profiling and things like that. So I actually ended up getting my master's in criminal justice with a focus on forensic psychology. So that was one of the books I read during that time frame to kind of like keep me motivated and keep me going. So it was fascinating. I loved it. I do plan on reading a lot more true crime and nonfiction this year as well. It's not just going to be fiction, but I am not going to lie. A lot of it is going to mainly be horror and fantasy. So I'm excited. So that's going to be it for today, guys. I'm sorry if it was super long. I know I get off topic a lot. I just wanted to do a quick year in review, throw some content at you, and just let you know that I am back. I am trying. I promise you're going to see me glow up pretty soon with, you know, actual red hair instead of pink. And I am excited to be talking to you guys about books. I know a lot of you have been messaging me on Instagram and stuff like that, asking when am I going to start the demonology series again? Am I even still doing that anymore? Due to some things that have happened, things that have occurred to me at the end of this past year, I am very hesitant to dive back into demonology. Not gonna go into it. I'm really not. But I do have a lot of books on demonology that I do still plan on reading. So like when those books come across, I will go into more depth and more detail on it. I do have a lot of knowledge about demonology, but I am by no means a demonologist. I'm not an expert. I've never claimed to be. I'm not even an expert on the paranormal, guys. Like, any questions you have about demonology probably shouldn't be directed at me, and I never meant to kind of steer y'all in that direction thinking that, you know, you should ask me that, because I don't have any face-to-face experience with demons. At least none that I'm willing to talk about. So I'd rather just not go down that road. I'm trying to stay in a very positive mind frame this year, or at least a realistic one and not such a depresso espresso one, you know what I mean? So I will be coming out with more content throughout the year. I'm trying to at least do 2 videos a month, hopefully more, as I start to read and gain some momentum. So for a lot of you out there, just thank you so much for your support. I've noticed that my channel has grown quite a bit. I mean, I think we're past 300 subscribers now, and if you remember, I did promise a giveaway for every 100 subscribers that I get. So I will be doing a giveaway very soon. It's probably going to be over on my Instagram page, so I will post that down below, but I'm not entirely sure when I'm going to do the giveaway. So just keep an eye on my Instagram if you have one. Follow me on there, and I will post the giveaway information as soon as I can. But other than that, thank you guys so much for being here, hanging out with me, listening to me rant and rave like a psychopath. I appreciate it. I hope you guys get a kick out of it. Now tell me, like, what are the answers to these questions for you guys? Like, what were some of the best reads that y'all had for last year? And what are y'all really, like, hungry for this year? Let me know. Comments down below. I love you all, and I will see you next time.